We're back, people.
Oh yeah, we are. We're back together.
Together forever.
And
No, God, that
always.
you would not think either of us studied musical theatre with that little number. What? Oh my God, it's a foot. It's a foot.
My foot has been welcomed into the podcast.
Hi everyone. How are we?
Guten Tag. Guten Morgen.
It is actually morning, I think.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
It definitely
easily.
is.
It's you.
11:02. Why have you got that as your background?
No, I haven't. I've got multiple.
Yeah, but look at my face.
I know, there's loads. There's loads of moronic ones. That's cute. I printed that. I got some free prints. I remembered that free prints. You know, the last free prints I got was in November. I think I got scared of like the fact they like use your stock images, but then I thought, you know what?
What?
I know, but the thing is, then I thought,
No, what do you mean they use your stock images?
I don't know. Someone was like, it's probably fake news. But in the end, I thought, do you know what? And ultimately, in this world, if you want to wank over a picture of me in a bluey onesie, fucking go for it, you weirdo. You know what I mean?
Well, hopefully not. Maybe because Teddy's standing up, sitting
Yeah,
up.
he can help.
He
He can be
have the
mine.
mic.
Good job, Ted. We're a trio.
Well done, Ted.
Well, is this my second time coming to Bournemouth? So exciting.
Last time you came, it was Christmas, wasn't it?
It was different temperatures.
Different temperatures, very hot at the moment.
Yeah, actually it's cooled down today, which is why we can record, because yesterday was a lot for everyone involved.
Couldn't touch each other.
Right.
You know when it's like,
yeah.
Honestly, the thought of someone touching me in that heat yesterday was...
I don't actually think we need to touch for the podcast. I just remember them really put that out there.
No, but like we couldn't hug.
No, we couldn't hug.
I mean, we had to be a metre apart at all times.
Yeah, but we did. We had tea under the
event shelter.
Yeah.
David's put up an event shelter.
He has. And I'll be totally honest with you, I mean, there was mixed. I think there were two sides when it comes to the event shelter last night. And I must admit, apart from...
What side were you on?
Well, apart from the flies, I was on David's side. But I do think that he needs to get one of those like scent things, like because he was attracting a large amount of the nature. The insects were all kind of...
The insects were a bit much. It did get to a point where I thought,
okay,
there were
more insects than humans at this party. But I mean, I was for, because to be honest with you, I mean, look at me. And actually, to be fair, like, I'm the world's like whitest human being. So actually, to be out, and actually, I was wondering whether, when you've got something like that, like it could make it really hot under there, but actually it wasn't too hot under there. So
it's UV protected.
See, David knows where it's at, but I do think David would. Personally, David, I would get like one of those, I think, like scent things.
Like the citronella.
Yeah.
Not the candle.
Not a candle, because that's dangerous. Also, if I was David, I would, be adding a few fairy lights, but I don't think that's probably really necessarily David's vibe. Each to their own.
I think it needs a bit of like...
Because you can make it so cute under there.
Yeah. Right now it's very...
But also, the thing is, because which is good, because it's an event shelter, because it doesn't have a back, which is nice because it gets a lot of air. I would want to make a little cosy corner, But it was lovely. We had a lovely family meal. Then Dave went for a run. We had a little chat, a little girly chat. And then we came and lay in the room, just thought, this is too hot.
Watched a bit of Virgin Islands, didn't we?
We did. It's the most disturbing programme. I actually can't. But here we are.
I love it. Well, no, I don't love it, but I just find it is quite entertaining.
And I think you particularly find it entertaining watching me watch it.
Yeah.
I just spend the whole time going, that's just not okay. Stop.
It's also, it's the moments where something happens and we both just look at each other.
Bizarre, really bizarre. I mean, if anyone was watching this who knows about the legal, I really am very fascinated by the legal logistics of that programme. I'm not going to say anything because, I want to keep this PG. But if you do know how that is actually legal, please do hit us up in our DM.
It's all of the,
you don't need a hamster, you need a therapist in DM. Do not DM my Instagram, please, for that information. Or Millie's Instagram. Please just do the podcast Instagram for legal reasons. Thank you.
Yeah, because there's a lot of like therapist
boundaries.
There's
no boundaries.
Being crossed in many ways.
There are no boundaries on that programme.
Maybe they're not actual therapists.
Well, I don't know what they are. The fact that Jill listens to this is going to be like, what, why? Sorry, Jill, we do apologise. We actually are very intellectual human beings. Really lowering the tone of the podcast. Anyway, welcome back to...
You don't need a hamster.
You need a therapist. An actual therapist, not a sex therapist. Well, you might need a sex therapist.
Well, who knows?
And if you do,
we're not here to judge.
And if you do, absolutely. But my only suggestion, and again, we can't give advice, we're not doctors, but if you do need a sex therapist, I suggest you do that. I really want to do that, borrow my doggy. Anyway, sorry. That sounds really dodgy in the context of what we're talking about. But I would suggest you don't do it live on Channel 4. I suggest you go somewhere and work on that privately.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion. You don't have to do it. That's fine.
Yeah, if you want to go on
Channel
4.
Do you think there's going to be a series 2?
Probably.
Crazy.
I don't know though. Has it picked up that much?
I don't know.
Attention.
Oh, we're watching it.
I know, yeah.
I bet Pat won't be watching it. She gets very triggered by that kind of event. She goes, you might have to cut this, but she goes, it's basically just live pornography these days on the TV.
That is basically live pornography on the TV though.
And she can't get over it. She just thinks, who's watching pornography? I think, Pat, I don't really think you want the answer to that. You don't want to know who's watching it. Quite a lot of people, unfortunately. Anyway, moving on. Today is not what we're discussing today.
Today, we're reflecting.
And rejoicing.
Because it has been over a year since we've started
the pod.
Many iterations of the pod have happened.
And I think that sums up. Look at Ted's holding that microphone, doing such an excellent job there. But we thought that we would, it was nice. We kind of wanted to save, actually, this episode. We wanted to be together for this little reflection episode. I mean, it's actually, when we're looking, I just looked back on Spotify, and the first episode of Monday Mornings with Millie, which was the original pit we did together, and we will be talking about the evolution of this, because I think
there's been a lot.
It was on the 13th of May 2024, and my gosh, how we have grown as human beings since then. It's wild, actually. I've grown so much.
What's happened?
I've changed. Wow. I'm proud of us.
I'm proud of us too.
We've made some great steps.
Made some great decisions.
And some less great decisions. And you know what? That's life.
That's life. That's what all the people say.
And I made these dungarees that Teddy's wearing, and I think, wow, great work, Hannah. Basically a seamstress.
Do you know what does upset me slightly?
What?
The fact that the Velcro isn't at the front.
Yes.
With the buttons.
I know. Actually, what I would say, we don't talk about that. I think we just move on quickly, actually. That's not the reflection anybody wants.
No. Okay. Yeah.
So where should we start? Should we start with for the new listeners? Because some people might have only joined when we're on You Don't Need a Hamster, You Need a Therapist. Should we go from the beginning of how this started? It's actually going to say, explain when this little idea first was born.
Well, originally, guys, I can't lie, we were aiming high. We wanted a sitcom.
Oh, we're still having a sitcom eventually, but we've just got to wait for a few people to be,
interested in our lives.
I'm going to write a sitcom. I've already written a musical. Sitcom's next. But basically, actually, because it was the snow, wasn't it? I got snowed into Manchester because I lived past tense. I basically, to get to where I live, I commuted on it. I can't believe I commuted 2 hours morning and evening to Manchester. That was mental. Yeah. That was a really mental decision I made. But anyway, and I lived in the Peaks, and when the snow came, and Edale was like a no-go zone, and I was trapped. So, luckily I'd prepared for this event because I kind of knew it was going to happen. And to be fair, it's really interesting because we hadn't even spoken since before Christmas. Before Christmas, we kind of a little bit during the...
Well, we must have spoken a bit.
Because in the book musical, right, basically, full info, but don't worry, I'm not going. In the book musical...
Scared.
In the book musical, you and Nadia were, together for one bit, weren't you? I don't think you were Miss Fleming in that scene. The first one, when we were in the school, with the trays.
Yeah, I was Miss Fleming in that.
I thought
and she was the head teacher, that's why we were...
Oh, yes, I remember now. Gosh, it was all going on. And so we kind of interacted a bit then. Not
you
really.
Were like a stoner behind me.
I was a stoner,
We were doing Heathers.
Just to clarify, not real. Anyway, obviously then things happened. And then after Christmas, we were in the same group.
Yeah.
And then we kind of... And then I was off for a day, and then we had to get into pairs to do duologues. And I'd already spoken to Paul Ryan about being with Katie because I was really special and was scared of everything. And then we sat down in ballet with our mat, and Millie said to me, "Do you want to be partners?" And I just stared at her like she was an alien, full blown, just autistic, just stare. I'd never ever been no one had ever wanted to be partners with me, in life. I wasn't, and then to have two people want to be my partner, I couldn't cope. So I just stared at her for really long.
She wouldn't respond. So I was just there it's okay.
You don't have to be my partner, it's fine. And I was like literally dying though, because I was like obviously really worried that like I didn't want to upset her. And also, like, you know, could be another friend. Could nearly have 3 friends. Anyway, we ended up doing a trialogue, which was actually quite a traumatic experience because no one wanted to do 3 women and an onion.
We've gone rogue.
We have, I'm going into the story, but anyway, we weren't actually that close. And then randomly, I stayed at Millie's during this snow day. And, well, first of all, did we have a McDonald's that day? Was that the McDonald's one from, we ordered McDonald's. Anyway, we bonded. We really bonded that evening. And
we were up until like 3 a.m.
3 a.m. Bearing in mind, for those who don't, you know, go to drama school, this is not like normal university. No. We are talking, we have to be there at 9 a.m. sharp doing something.
Yeah, ready to warm up at 9 a.m.
So it was a bit rogue that we decided that was a great choice, but we did. So
we just couldn't sleep, could we? Because we just, every time we went to sleep, we just burst out laughing.
So funny. But anyway, that was the birth, and we kind of joked a bit about that.
That was the birth
of the podcast, not the birth of... God.
I don't think it was though.
No, it was because we didn't. No, it was the birth. We didn't talk about the podcast then, but like if we hadn't had that was the
moment, birth of our friendship.
When we realised that like we had a lot of fun together and things were funny.
Yeah,
because we hadn't.
And then, but do you know what I think really did it? The improv scene that we had to do.
That was the funniest thing, actually. I genuinely.
I think that's the most fun I've ever had in a
lesson. I really loved that. And it was just, everything about that was actually the most fun. I loved improv. It was the spoon, like when we did that spoon thing and I had to put like a random object and pretend it was something else.
Yeah.
That was feral. But anyway, yeah. It was then that we kind of, and I'd thought about doing a podcast because I'd done a branding session with this person. I got a free branding session. How cool. And they'd said about like, what are your goals within like Legally Detained? And I was like, I want to do more public speaking. And they were like, well, there's no point having a blog. It would be better to spend your time on a podcast. But obviously like, the thought of starting a podcast feels like really scary and like, oh my gosh, I can't just do that. Anyway, lo and behold,
turns out you can.
Anyway, then we basically we had a lot of time, like we met up, we started planning, and we made the decision to, so I wanted to call it No Longer Legally Detained because it was a metaphor for like my journey of like being in hospital, which was when my blog was created, and then No Longer Legally Detained was like now I was no longer in hospital. And then Millie, we wanted to do a separate bit with Millie, and obviously most basic thing ever, oh perfect, Monday mornings with Millie.
Hannah came up with that name, I'd like to say.
It was. And was it the best? No, but you know what?
No.
It's okay.
Other things that we did, we decided we wanted to do a craft very rogue, and actually we found it very distracting to try and do. We did, yeah.
I mean, it was a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all still for the crafts in life.
Yeah, well, I love a craft, but...
And then, we decided, like, just to see what happened. And, so, yeah, we began together. We obviously still are together for the pod, here this bit. And then we joined, at some point I met Lily, we joined Be the Change Media Network.
That's the thing, that was our first like rebrand, wasn't it?
That was the first rebrand. And then, because I've already set up No Longer Legally Detained, there were just too many brands under one brand. If anyone who does brand marketing, they know it's really important to have a very strong brand. And I had a strong brand with No Longer Legally Detained, and it just didn't really fit together with having another brand on top.
But also you're like very busy and have a lot, and you're very obviously protective over your brand. So I think it became quite apparent quite quickly that actually like having to be doing all of the like work that comes with being in a...
Also, it was tricky, I think, also because I was trying to, which I still actually haven't done, classic, but I was trying to make like Legally Detained very specific, because you have to have a very specific market. And obviously, as Millie, as someone who has not been legally detained, it became like we were trying to fit too many things under a bracket that didn't really. And also, I was very worried about, if anyone who does personal branding or actually has any kind of branding where your neck is on the line, mainly because I think it would have been different if we'd both had that experience, but because we both hadn't had that experience, quite rightly, Millie wanted to expand out one way, but that just didn't really fit with the brand. And so we could kind of would have come to a bit of a head. So we decided to split off and actually then get more the merrier. You know what I mean? More the merrier. And also with under Be the Change Media Network, it was an opportunity for you to like branch out like yourself kind of in gaining some of the skills that like I kind of already had because I'd done it myself. And then we got You Don't Need a Hamster, You Need a Therapist, which was a quote that you created.
Jill said that. She's actually not very happy that she said that was meant to be a
which
a
is
teaching moment for you, Millie, and now you've made it into a podcast.
No, but I think it's one of the best things Jill's ever said. Like, it's very good, Jill. Absolutely, she did need a therapist. She probably still needs a therapist, and she didn't need a hamster. So it was, quite frankly, and I think it's a lesson for a lot of people. I think a lot of people, when they start struggling with their mental health, they think, oh, I'll just buy, a teddy, I'll buy a dog, I'll buy a hamster. And actually, no, he's my child. Actually, no, Jill is right. You need to not buy things to put a plaster over your mental health. You need to delve deep in and find out what's wrong.
Yeah.
And here we are. But the people we were a year ago when we started this, we both just graduated, in very much inverted commas here, Mount View.
I was having my own personal struggles with that, wasn't I?
There was a lot of struggles going on there.
There was a lot of struggles going on there. And you were
in the midst of, I'd got a place at a drama school, and
quite a mainstream drama
school, and I was having a few little issues around kind of access to that. But if I look back to the person then and how much I was, because the thing is, I was so determined to go and do that course, because I was like, no, I told everyone that I'm going to, and people didn't believe that I could do it, and therefore I was like, no, I've got to do it. Whereas actually, obviously, first of all, that's not true. But second of all, the decision to walk away from that course was the best decision I could have made. And actually, what I've done instead, A, is actually harder, because but B, has made me so much more happy and so much more towards what I wanted to do. And this past year has been difficult in terms of a lot of things, but the growth has been massive.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's interesting looking back at us a year ago and how
sat in your room
with colouring books
and a really crazy slick back.
Yes, because we were going to teach a workshop, weren't we afterwards?
Wild.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And we were at very different places. But I also think it's quite interesting because we've actually we went 2 different ways, but actually I feel like both came to the same place, because we were both meant to be going somewhere that we weren't that sure about in the end. And, I did go and then left later on, and you didn't, and we're both in better places for it.
And excited for our next steps.
In
life.
Indeed.
But should we reflect on a lesson we've learned the past year?
Yeah.
And something that we're really grateful for that's happened in the past year.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about my year this morning, weren't we? And actually
in the mobile.
In the Millie mobile.
As Millie was going to what I like to call a dentist.
But we were talking about it, and actually how good this year's been, although there's been some real testing moments. Actually, everything's kind of gone the way that it needed to go, I think, in many ways. And I even think going to a place that wasn't quite right for me was almost the perfect thing to happen, to prove to myself that I can I was able to say, no, this isn't working, I need to leave.
I don't think you would have got to that if you hadn't gone.
No.
And it hadn't worked. I think sometimes we do need, obviously no one wants any trauma, not great, but sometimes we do, the thing is, people can tell you, but unless you experience it for yourself, you're not necessarily going to believe it. And I think that this is what I was saying to Millie in the car. I was actually, I think everything that's happened this year, although some of it, less than ideal, all of it overall, it has been a really good year. And that sounds really bizarre. If you look back at the year and think, really? But actually, that's the same with my year of there's been some really dark times, but actually all of it has allowed and I've always been really against the whole trauma makes you stronger, because it fucking doesn't. But but I do think that for me, obviously, because it's not been any long lasting severe trauma this year, I don't think. Probably, maybe there has, God knows. But actually, this I have had this year, which is probably my biggest lesson, is learning that actually my trauma, my complex PTSD, actually has a humongous impact on my life.
Yeah.
That actually my growing up wasn't. normal, and that not everybody else experienced the things that I experienced. Like, bizarrely, which other people probably looking could think, are you on anything? Like, how did you think that that was normal? But I really did not think that my childhood was any different, particularly. But I think that having that and realizing the impact of trauma, and obviously that's been really hard. Especially the beginning of this year was like really, really, really horrible, and like a lot of dissociation and trauma-induced psychosis and the whole shebang. But it has allowed me to actually begin to properly understand myself, realize that I am not actually the worst human being ever, and I don't deserve those things, and that I can now start on the path of like, okay, those things happened and they were horrible and I didn't deserve them, and they will never not be part of like my life, and they will have impacted me for the rest of my life, but I can equally move forward and create a life that is my life now.
I think that's such like an interesting thing when bad things are happening to you, and when things are happening, you can feel like they're so normal, and actually it takes a long time, and often it takes like a specific event or specific circumstances or an environment for you to realize like actually this isn't normal.
Yeah.
And I always think like, because I think that was Mountain View for me, obviously not to the extent that you've had this year, but like Mountain View to me was realizing that actually like this is what like friendship can be, this actual safe place where you don't have to people please to get people to stay for you. Yeah, I think just like that thing of like there's circumstances that suddenly you like realise maybe that wasn't normal, but obviously I'm glad that you've come to that conclusion this year.
I know, it's so stunning.
I think we've just evolved and grown and developed.
And as much as, people might be bored of me saying it, my frontal lobe has really formed.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Really.
Do you know Jill's fed up of it?
I don't, and I think, you know what, Jill? Babe.
What are you going to say to Jill?
I'm going to say, Jill, you might be bored of my fully formed frontal lobe, but let me tell you, if you'd met me before my fully formed frontal lobe, you would be more sick of that. That was jarring. Got the jarring in as well.
But yeah.
And here's to another year, and hopefully we actually keep on the same. We don't need a hamster year. Come on, we can do this.
I think we can. I think we've settled now.
Yeah.
We very much rushed into it. But I don't think that was a bad thing, because I just don't think we would have ever started it.
Also, I do think that I think if we started it as a separate thing, we would never have started it. I think we needed like a bit of I needed the boost of like you doing it with me, and we needed together the boost of already kind of a brand.
Yeah.
So it worked perfectly. And you know what? I think that it's not things aren't. I don't view it as a mistake. I just view it as the beginning.
Yeah, and it would have been. I think the thing is as well is like when we were going into it, or especially obviously because you already had your brand, and obviously I think the stakes are higher when you already have a brand, whereas I think now that we've split them off, like the thing that I'm realizing is, because everybody says consistency is key, and consistency 100% is key, but also like I think that's maybe been the biggest takeaway for this year for me, is that actually like if things aren't working, you can change it. Like
100%.
We've been through like 3 remodels of this podcast in a year. It's our first year, so like.
And absolutely, if you want to grow something that is going to be, monetizable, etc., consistency is key. However, there is no point being consistent on something that isn't authentic and isn't right,
and something that you don't really love.
No, because there is always, everything takes time to grow, and obviously once you've settled into something, then if you want to grow it, absolutely consistency is then key. But there is no point.
You've got to find
the thing first.
Got to find, and as much as like you've got to find not only like the kind of aesthetic side of it, of like, are you talking about the topics you want to talk about, and is the branding exactly how you like it, but like also like the feasibility of it. Can you actually sustain it? Because I know for us that was and that still is a big thing of like, and I'd say that's probably the thing that we're still navigating the most.
But I think that is the thing that has changed. I think at the beginning I had the world's worst work-life balance out of both of us. Whereas I think the tables have turned, whereas I think that's purely just because of the stages of life that we're in, is that you were in a stage where like you didn't have as much like work commitment, or you didn't like you were just kind of still in the student phase, whereas I was in like the saying yes to everything, working constantly phase, and I have now moved out to the other side of being like life, and I have got at the moment a very good balance actually, which is jarring to say. Like, but
she turned up and I was like, oh, what work do you have to do? Because normally
I have at least 5 work calls. I see Millie. I have none. And I think Millie was like, I was like, no, I've made sure there's nothing happening. And she was like, what the fuck? Are you okay? But I do think that like that's just a phase, and I think because of like your like obviously building up for your big like exciting 2 years, that like absolutely you're utilizing all of this time to like work, which is, but obviously then like the podcast at the moment has to take a bit of a backseat, and that's okay.
Well, shall we announce it? Because I've edited out any time we've spoken about
I think we should announce it, because I think it's perfect for the reflection.
I think this is 1 year reflection.
Yeah, come on. Drum roll.
I'm moving to New York, guys.
Oh my god, that's so wild.
2 years in like a month.
I feel like
like 8 weeks before not 8 weeks, 6 weeks before I moved.
People are gonna be like, that's actually like wild. What? New York.
I know, I'm going off to study over there to do acting for 2 years.
The Big Apple.
It is the Big Apple.
I'm good I got the right one.
I'm so excited. I'm a bit like scared actually at the moment because...
Well, I think that's very, very normal.
Obviously there's like the nerves of moving, but also I feel like I've got so much to sort out.
Yeah.
Not an awful lot of time to do it. And I'm also stage managing a show at the moment, which is in a couple of weeks' time. So my life kind of is like dedicated to that, but I'm also like,
yeah, I got the
I'm moving across the world. So
this is so exciting, and like obviously overwhelming, because like going off to uni is overwhelming. So therefore, like going, but I think we were a bit talking about this last night, weren't we, in the at the family dinner, of how like it is obviously it is big and it's really exciting. And it's like obviously it is scary, but also like it's only for a small, short amount of time, really, in the big scheme of life, and like
because it's like a 2-year course, but it's like a 9 months. The years are not 9 months, so it's it's okay.
I think like this is something that I've definitely really like learning to. It's like riding the wave of life and like realizing that things do not have to be perfect. And actually, if we do release like just to see what happens, actually that really is the thing, and it's really annoying. But how exciting!
Yeah, there have probably been little hints to it in our previous episodes because we've spoken about it quite openly, but I wanted to keep it a little bit under wraps until everything was sorted and confirmed. But
obviously there's a lot of paperwork and stuff that you've got to like get done.
But all of my paperwork has gone through. I've got my visa, my flights are booked. So yeah,
what fun! I mean, who could say that they like?
Who would have said, like, if you'd have told me a year ago that I'd be moving to New York,
you'd have been like, no, that's mental.
But yeah,
how exciting!
So yeah, when we do a reflection a year on, I will have.
Yeah, well, we're doing the podcast is going international.
The podcast is going international. We might have to. We're going to try and bulk record a bit today.
We'll take about 9 months though.
Yahoo! But the podcast will be continuing.
I don't know what the time difference is to New York.
Like 4 hours.
Which way though?
Behind. Yeah, so like right now it's 11 o'clock here, it's 7 o'clock.
In the morning. See, that's the wrong way round, isn't it, really? Because I'm the morning person.
Yeah, exactly.
Less
but it will mean night time. It will work at it will work in the evening
because I will still be awake.
You'll be awake and I can record at night.
Yeah. So good. So good, people.
Yeah.
How exciting. So yeah, well, I think we should wrap up this episode because we've got a book record and it's 35 minutes in. Golly.
Well, thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope let us know if you've been here for the whole year of.
This is a really unflattering angle.
Yeah, I'm not enjoying the angles at all.
No, neither am I. But okay, move on.
Yeah, let us know if have you been here since the Monday morning days?
Yeah, if you have.
If you have, crikey.
Comment the crown emoji because you're a queen.
Or a king.
Or a king. If you want to be a king, up to you. And
yeah, we'll see you.
Follow the podcast. Give us 5 stars on Spotify if you can. It really means so much. And
I suddenly thought I didn't have 5 fingers then.
Wow.
Look how weird my fingers look on there.
Yeah, interesting. And we'll see you next Monday.
See you next Monday.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.